What?
If you're working in the cancer oncology data field, you know that hazard ratios is a principal measure of the outcome of trials. Dr. Mark Gramling is going today to demo one of the features of our platform. The name of the platform is Larvol Clean. In that platform, we have digitized about 20,000 hazard ratios across all clinical trials. And we're going to demo how that platform, that software can help you analyze cancer data. You're listening to our weekly podcast, Larvol Onco Data. And my voice being what it is, I'm going to let Dr. Gramling do most of the talking today. Mark, up to you.
Thank you, Bruno. So we'll jump right to it. I will share my screen in just a moment here. And I thought, since, as you can see in the background, Bruno is traveling the world as he usually does. Recently, our team has been at the Next Gen Immuno-Oncology Conference. Perhaps I'd take that as a context for what we'd look at in terms of hazard ratios within Clin. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. All right. And so hopefully my screen is visible. So this is aforementioned Larvol Clin. And if you go to Larvol Clin, and you can check us out obviously on social media, and there's a free version online. This is what Bruno is referencing in terms of the hazard ratios that we've digitized within Clin. So to really just jump straight to that point, we'd like to illustrate today just briefly how you can look at different trials, how you can pull up different trials that have been digitized and put into a common data model within Clin. So as I said, if we want to look in the context of IO, what might be a question you might want to investigate, and I'll just pull something maybe rather simple. If let's say you're looking within, let's say, nivolumab and maybe a couple different contexts of different lines of therapy, two trials that might come to mind would be, actually this is pre-populated because I was looking at it recently. You could look at, let's say, here in the context of melanoma, this is Checkmate 066, and also in melanoma 3.7 comes from second line. And you can search any trials you'd want in any conditions you'd want, but we're going to be very direct here in the interest of time. So if I pull all of the hazard ratio data that we have in these two trials, you'll see here quite quickly, obviously we have these trials in our system. And if you expand upon, let's start with the first line study within Nivo. Here sort of gives you a preview of how our data is structured. Here at the top, you have various publications over time, looking really at the overall ITT, the main comparison for that trial. It could be PFS or OS, obviously, amongst others. And then if you scroll down further, you'll see how we've further coded the data to reflect subgroups. And so you can see all the different subgroups that have been documented within the context of this trial. And then maybe just to illustrate the same point, if I continue to scroll down here for 037, which is in second line plus context, have this further down. So this is obviously a slightly different study with Nivo in second line. This is versus dacarbazine. I'm not saying that too well today. And again, we have all patients ITT as well as the subgroups. So obviously, I'll do this rather quickly in the context of the short time we have today here on our podcast. But if I pulled down and let's say I was interested in really, it's a rather straightforward proposition, but an important proposition of looking at the signal of, let's say, PD-L1 low or PD-L1 high expression in the context of these two trials, and are they predictive or strongly predictive outside of many other subgroups we could look at. I can come down here and select and visualize based on that hypothesis. So here, there's some data on PD-L1 expression in terms of being positive, or it was as measured here, being negative or indeterminate. So that could be related to my hypothesis I'm trying to investigate about PD-L1 low impact. So I'm going to go ahead and select that here. And again, this is in the first Checkmate 066 trial. So that's first line context. But then if I wanted to further populate again in one data model, which is very unique to CLIN, how to pull out the same type of question in a different trial to take a quick look. Here, this is by IVRS, but again, related to the hypothesis I'm trying to investigate, I can click here and populate from this. And before I jump to the graph, I do want to emphasize that you can preview all of this data. All of this is linked to the sources to help you perform really what in forest plots on this tab in CLIN is a very quick meta-analysis. So when I do that, you can see, and let's just focus here on the 4 pieces of data at the top. You can put all of that in one visual to look at in the context of 066, what was the effect of PD-L1 positivity or being negative indeterminate on the hazard ratios in that trial. And both of these in that context were well below 1. But then if you look maybe secondarily here in the second line plus context, as one might expect or one might speculate that PD-L1 negative in second line Nivo might cross that 1 barrier. It's pretty wide confidence interval that even crosses 1. So that speaks to how strong the the predictive nature of that PD-L1 expression levels is in the context here, which is a Nivo versus a alternate therapy. So again, that was a super quick analysis, and it's to each user's own expertise to look at comparisons that make sense for them. And obviously, biostatistically, there are limitations to doing forest plots and even comparing Kaplan-Meier curves, which we'll be addressing in a subsequent podcast, and that tool within CLIN. But that's what you can do here.
On the podcast very soon. I think you're back. You're back on, Mark.
Okay. I'm glad I'm back on. I'm not quite sure where I dropped out. So just maybe I'll restate my just prior comment, which is obviously making forest plots like this and looking at different trials and different contexts and different settings has a lot of opportunities that CLIN affords, but also you have to make sure you're exploring strong hypotheses as well. So that's important to looking at CLIN. And I hope I didn't restate too much, as I guess my audio cut out. But that's a basic premise and the structure of what we can do with digitized forest plots in CLIN. Maybe to explore a little bit further, because again, that was very targeted, but maybe I'll just very quickly sort of demonstrate a different sort of context. Maybe you're not particularly driven by maybe a singular hypothesis. Maybe you're looking at something more broadly. You can obviously construct forest plots in CLIN by a number of different search parameters as well. So rather than looking at maybe particular trials off top, you could look, obviously it would be incredibly broad, but you could look by ICIs, and maybe you could look by you just want to explore relatively broadly, you could look within a tumor type and pull what would be obviously a large swath of data within the context of, let's say, non-small cell lung cancer and immune checkpoint inhibitors. You could clear your prior plot, but as you can see here, you could work through the data in a different way, starting with different search parameters, drilling down by MOA and condition, as I just described, or you could maybe look at sort of the market, if you want to phrase it that way, by looking just within later phase trials. So there's a number of different search parameters available to you, and everything is still structured the same way, having both the hazard ratios from OS and PFS for the overall ITT, but also being able to look at subgroups as well. So this happened to land, I did a broad search on another Nivo trial with different subgroups illustrated here. So that's not just selected by trial, but you can do searches by all of these different elements. And obviously, it may be obvious, but just to point out as well, that when you do construct a particular plot, and maybe I'll reconstruct one very quickly for illustrative purposes, you can save these plots within your system, and you can also save these or export the trial listing or export the plot that you make. So maybe you'd want to snip that out from a PDF that you can download, put that maybe in a presentation if you're maybe in the pharma industry, which is our main customer for the CLIN platform. And I wanted to highlight that feature as well. So that, in brief, is the forest plot functionality. Again, 17,000, upwards of 20,000 actually. Digitized hazard ratios with obviously their confidence intervals. You can look in many different contexts, search in different contexts, put those into one data model to do what we like to call maybe meta-analysis on the fly. So our goal is, collecting this type of data may take an individual or may take a team many hours or many days. And the goal of CLIN is to have all of that data immediately at your fingertips to put that into a forest plot. So I'll pause there. I call that the super 10,000 foot level of CLIN forest plots. But if you'd like to learn more, of course, reach out to us on social media, reach out to Bruno or I, or anyone on our Larvol team, LinkedIn, or find us at larvol.com. Of course, you can inquire there, and we'd love to connect to show you a little bit more about what CLIN can do.
The next medical conference we'll be at will be AACR in San Diego. What's the date for that, Mark? And if you audience plan to be there, we would love to say hello and maybe to give you in person a full demo of Larvol CLIN. Our team worked for now 3 years building a platform that I'm extremely proud of, and we would love to have more and more of you tried. And I think that's in a month or so. Is that right? When is AACR, Mark?
So
it's coming soon.
Might need my dates double checked. I might need my dates double checked, but I'm fairly certain that is the 5th of April. So
okay.
I believe that's the 5th or 10th of April for AACR, so you can connect with us there.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate the demo. Audience, thank you very, very much as well. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Larvol Onco Data. I'll be back in my office, I think, then.